Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Texas Outlaw Running Talk Show. This is your host, Briston Rains, and today we're going to be talking about all the wild stories, experiences, and things you didn't know that happened this year behind the scenes race directing. Asher Hamlin will be joining us. He's the Vice President and Arkansas Division Race Director for Texas Outlaw Running Company. He had been the co-race director at every race this year, so I'm excited to have him on. Before we hop into it, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, feel free to go ahead and scroll down and leave us a rating. Let us know what you think about the show. And also, we're going to be collaborating with Team Dirt and Vert March 26th to put on the inaugural Ramble and the Brambles trail run in Muenster, Texas at the 4R Ranch and Winery. It's a scenic 9-mile, 19-mile, and 20-mile trail run right on the Red River of North Texas. For more info on that, just go to texasoutlawnrunning.com/races and click the race info tab for Ramble and the Brambles. Now, that's pretty much everything as far as race announcements go. Now to the show. Get ready because it gets very interesting. Hey everyone, I'm with Asher Hamlin. Asher is one of my best friends. He's now my roommate in college. He's my teammate on the cross country team at Southern Arkansas University. And this year has been crazy. We're going to talk a little bit about everything that we did this year for Texas Outlaw Running. And Asher has been there for every single race, except for one at the very end, a little one at the end. But he's been there at every single race, and he's a big part of helping all these events happen, and he's been a big part of it all. So, Asher, you want to tell them a little bit about yourself and kind of what you do?
Yeah, sure. I met Briston last year, 2020, right? In the fall of 2020, he was a freshman on our cross country team. And yeah, we kind of hit it off, and we had a lot of the same interests, especially when it came to the ultra running community and the trail running community and, propping that up. And so whenever he started to run with the business, I guess, it sparked my interest. I was like, well, if I'm going to be this guy's friend and, he's got all these crazy ideas, how do I help him, the best along the way? And so, yeah, it's been an adventure being there for 4 races now, I believe, 4 of the big races. And I mean, everyone, as we'll get into more into the podcast, has been, unique in its own way. And I think that's what's made it so awesome, is just, each one has presented its own adventure, its own, whatever. But yeah, I'm so a little bit more about me. I'm a rising senior at Southern Arkansas University, and I'm a runner, obviously, longtime runner. Running has always been one of my passions. I think in the future, I would like to continue to do something with running, whether that's through Texas Outlaw or, starting my own ventures or, whatever it is. But yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you on, man. I was excited for this because it's going to be fun. And to go off kind of what you said, yeah, each race that we did was its own story. It's like, in a way, its own book, each race that we did. And
Right.
and all of them had something that happened that was unexpected.
Something.
Yeah, and something that you couldn't plan for. There was always something. So, we'll go ahead and start it off with kind of the beginning of the year. The beginning of the year was my second semester of college, and I was just kind of in the planning phase for races. So we didn't have our first race until May 8th, I think, and that was the Chupacabra 50K over in Quanah, Texas. That's West Texas. And that was the first race of the year. That was my second race I've ever put on, and it was the first trail race we put on. And so Asher, I was like, dude, I really need some help. It would be great if you could come out. And I remember we were in the cafeteria whenever I was asking him if he could come help. And I was like, dude, I'll fly you out because he lives in Little Rock. And I was like, I'll fly you out to Dallas and we will go and put this race on. And he was like, sure, dude, let's do it. So, anyways, we go and we kind of I think we left on like a Tuesday or something, but I had just gotten the trailer. Now the trailer, I had gotten it like the day before or something and had it wrapped with the logo and everything on it, and so I was pretty stoked about that. But it was like, I remember we got a pizza. We like took the trailer and we drove it through town, and then we got like a big old pizza, um, and then we started driving to Quanah, just eating this large, like it was this massive pizza the whole time there, and it was like a
Yeah.
4-hour drive or something, right? It was yeah.
That was a
It
good
was,
start to the day, especially because I had that long flight and it was like, boom, we're eating and we're on the road. Like,
yeah,
and
yeah,
Bristol was just,
yeah. It
let's
was
get on
all
it.
in one day, I think. Whenever I picked you up from the plane, then we left.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, we went out there and it was like a couple hour drive, and like West Texas is pretty crazy. It's a bunch of windmills, a bunch of dry. It's really dry land out there, and it's like nothing out there. And so when we were driving
Right.
out there, I had never actually seen the state park before. And because like before, all I did, I had Google Maps, Google Earth, I had all trails, I had all these different resources, and I never actually like knew what it looked like for sure. And I just knew from pictures and stuff and from race planning what it was. And when we went out there, it was like all dry and flat. And then we get there and it's like beautiful. There's these canyons. There's like this big canyon that runs through the state park called Bull Canyon, and it was just like it was like this little hidden gem. We kept on using that term after. It was
Yep.
this hidden gem in the middle of West Texas. It was just outside Wichita Falls, and it was a really and it's an international dark sky park. So I was stoked because at night I knew it was going to be phenomenal and beautiful outside or at night, and it was. So we we'll go ahead and go first day all the way till we packed up and left. First day we got there, we did some course marking, we were taking pictures, we were just like absorbing it all in. I was like, man, this place is amazing. How have we not put on a race here before, or how has no one ever put on a race here before? And so we did some course marking, and this is all on video, by the way. It's called, I forgot, it's on my YouTube channel, Briston Rains, if you want to check it out, guys. But we recorded this whole adventure. Anyways, we did some course marking, and then we set up camp, and we slept in a tent for like 4 nights. And at night, it was beautiful. The sky at night, you could see stars. There was like maybe a centimeter in between each star, but the entire sky was just full of stars, and it was so beautiful. And and then the next day we were in for it, man. I think we did a lot of course marking and a little bit of setup, but man, it wore us down. We were out there all day for like 10 hours straight, probably just course marking, setting up, doing all kinds of stuff. And
So
then
correct me if I'm wrong. Was that the day that it was super windy? Us having to deal with like the tents and the.
no,
Remember that?
that wasn't until the day before the race.
Okay.
Yeah, that was Friday. So I think we're on like Thursday because we got there
Thursday.
Wednesday, so
Right.
we're on Thursday. And then Friday was crazy. The wind was going crazy. West Texas wind. If you've ever been to West Texas, it's like 20, 30 mile, 40 mile per hour wind. It's pretty crazy out there. And so we were setting up tents and stuff, and we were staking them in the ground, and like we had them angled against the wind, and then it was just I don't know how none of the tents broke. Honestly, they actually all stayed up, and none of them broke. But that day we were exhausted by the end of Friday because we went out, and there's this one aid station. It's called the Lone Ranger Aid Station, and we went out there, and it's like a mile hike up this huge like cliff area, and we had to carry like this big old table, a bunch of water coolers, and all of that. And that's also the first time we met our photographer and videographer guys, Josh and Cole. They're with Reroute Media, and I found them on Facebook, and we connected and stuff. And those guys are the same age as Asher and I. They're around the same age. They're a little bit older, but that's the day we saw them or met them, and they were really cool guys. And it was really cool to connect with them. And it honestly was like a lifelong friendship that we made with them. And there's a lot more stories of them as we go on with this. But um, yeah, so we put out the aid station. I just remember coming back and we had like a hammock or something set up, and we were just exhausted. We were just like laying out, and it was hot. I remember it was like 80, 90 degrees, but the weather was really great at night. It was like 50 degrees at night, and then it'd only get 70 to 80 degrees in the afternoon. But the day of the race, the low was like 70 and the high was like 95 or something. And out of all days, the day of the race was like extremely hot. But we woke up. Oh, actually, the night before the race, I woke up at like 4 a.m. And I don't know if you remember this, Asher, but I looked up in the sky and I saw this line of lights. It was like 50 of them, and they were just going. And I was like, Asher, bro. I woke him up. I was like, Asher. I was like, what is that? And we looked at them. It looked like UFOs. I thought it was UFOs, and it was like hundreds of it was like a line of lights in outer space, just going across the atmosphere. And I mean, the night was beautiful, but it threw me off, and I thought it was like an alien or something. But we woke up the next morning, and I actually looked it up, and it was Elon Musk. It was his Starlink satellites. So it wasn't UFOs. I thought it was. I thought I had a story there, but
Yeah,
it was just
Briston you turned over to me in the middle of the night. You're like, Asher, there's like aliens up in the night sky right now. I'm like, what are you talking about? There's no way. And so this whole time, I'm skeptical. I'm like seeing this line of stars. And so I think I looked it up that night and I found out that it was the Starlink
Oh
satellites.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. We figured out what they
crisis
were.
averted. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of people that think those are like UFOs and stuff, but
Yeah.
um am I missing anything so far? I think I pretty much
I think you're good, man. Yeah.
man, I can't get over the night sky though. It really was so pretty there. Like it's the
Yeah.
International Dark Sky Park and it was just from each end of the atmosphere, like you look to the left, to the right, it was just everything's covered in stars. You can see the Milky
Yeah.
Way. It was awesome. Race day came around and I was nervous and excited. I was very excited. We woke up at like 4 a.m. or something and woke up out of our campsite, went over, and um, I just remember, and this race wasn't huge. Luckily, I'm glad it wasn't huge. It was only like what 30 people,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, it was like around 30 people, and so we, have packet pickup going on, and I'm pretty excited, and we knew the course markings. Like we ran the course quite a few times, and so we knew the course markings were like spot on. And so that's the biggest thing as a race director, just like hoping like everyone goes the right way, I guess. That's the biggest stress I have. And
Yeah.
so I mean the course markings were good though. And so we started off the race, started the 50K off, and then the 17K. It was just those two distances. And then it was just kind of like holding your breath, hoping people would come back and not be coming back on the road or something. And so, anyways, but people started coming back from the 50K loop, and then 17K finishers came, and it was just a really good race, but the heat got really hot as the day went on though. Um, but we so oh also another part when we were course marking, when you go into this place is just amazing. So like moment you're in like an open desert, and then next if you go to the floor of the canyon, which the runners go through, it's like this huge canyon, but when you go to the floor it's like a forest, and then when you come out it's like a desert, and so you just kind of get all of the biomes kind of all in one. So course marking was a lot of fun. It was like a safari adventure.
Hmm.
Saw a bunch of cool lizards and stuff out there. But yeah, it was just it went really good. I do think one or two people got lost, and so this was my first time kind of making course markings. I didn't really know what to do. And I just had like these little half sheet white pieces of paper, and so like they're visible. If you look for them you can see them, but I could see where someone could, you know, glance over and not see it or something. So, anyways, though, but everyone finished. We had one guy DNF, and then I think one or two people got lost, and they ended up finding their way back. And then that day, I remember we like packed up, and the photographers helped us pack up. And man, we packed up quick. We for the course markings, we went and we like sprinted. I remember looking down at my watch; it was like 6:50 pace, and we were like running to get all the course markings packed up. Got all the
Yeah.
course markings, and then 2 weeks, and then we cleaned up and everything, and then we headed out. And honestly, that was a lot of fun. Like that race was just fun, and there wasn't really anything bad that happened. It was just a good overall race. And
Yeah.
then 2 weeks later was the East Texas Ultra, so it was interesting to go from complete desert to the pine trees and the foothills of the Ouachitas. That was an interesting transition. We actually had one guy that ran the Chupacabra and the Texas Ultra race, so he got to experience both of those races within 2 weeks, which was cool. But for the East Texas Ultra, um, Asher, he was driving me down from Fayetteville because we were living in Fayetteville, Arkansas at the time, or about I was about to move in after this race, but Asher was already living there. He drove down from Fayetteville, Arkansas, and he came down the day before the race, but I was already setting up 2 or 3 days out. And this race was the biggest race I put on all year. It was 100 people. It sold out. It was big, and it was this 4.5 mile loop, or this 4.1 something mile loop. It was a really easy course to course mark. But I went out there course marked, and Ashley came Friday, and I pretty much had everything set up. We had to set up like a tent or something, and then that's the first time I got us like a hotel room, so we got to actually sleep
Yeah.
in a place that's not, in a tent. And so I got Josh, Cole, Asher, and we all got a shared a hotel room. And then my friend at the time, Carly and Karen, we got them a hotel room. They're from our school as well. They came to help volunteer. And then so we woke up really early Saturday morning. It was like 4, 5. I don't know. It was really early. We went out there to. It was at this is at Lake Bob Sandlin State Park. It's kind of near north of Tyler, Texas. And so we went out there and just kind of set up a couple things we needed to set up. And but this day it was raining all night long, and during the day, I think in the morning it might have rained a little bit, but it was completely muddy. This race was just a complete mud fest, and but luckily, like the park, I know a lot of parks, if it rains, they shut the trails down. Luckily, Lake Bob, they actually let us put the race on still, even though the trails got literally destroyed after 300 people were running over and over on it in loops. But yeah, we started the race, and it was three distances. It was 28K, 7K, 50K, and it went really smooth. Actually, I think the only thing that threw that race off was just the mud, but I
Yep.
really think
Yeah.
that race went really smooth. And I know a few people did get lost at one point in the race,
It
and
was
this is
like the
when I
very
figured out.
first loop, right?
Yeah, it was the first loop for a bunch of 50K runners. It was like a
Yeah.
handful of them. And this is when I figured out that, okay, I need to change up the science situation. So as a race director, this is a whole learning process. And so, because we still had the little white signs. So after this, I ended up upgrading to these big, huge orange signs that you can't miss. But anyways, that race went really smooth though. And it was really cool to see a lot of the people's accomplishments. A lot of people, it was their first 50K. And a lot of people ran their biggest distance they've ever ran before. And so that was just awesome to see that, and the community was really cool. Just having 100 trail runners all together, it's just a lot of fun. Dallas Dirt Runners came out. We had a couple Team Dirt and Vert runners come out. They're just like local running clubs, and so it was cool to see all of them out there, and it was just a fun race.
Yeah, that
Um,
was a good race.
yeah, I remember I had to send you out because they do cross the red at one point, so I had to send you out to do some traffic out there.
Yeah, direct traffic at one
Yeah.
point. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, it was a little hard. Well, it wasn't too difficult doing it 2 weeks out from the Chupacabra to East Texas. I actually, after the first week, I had like a week to where I kind of had a lot of time on my hands, so it wasn't too hard, having two races 2 weeks apart.
Right.
But yeah, that race went really smooth. There was one situation to where Karen, our friend Karen, we had medals, and we had 50K,
Oh yeah.
28K, and 7K medals. And she, at one point, she didn't know the medals were different, and she was handing out the wrong medals. And I think she only handed out like two, but I think we ended up getting it figured out. But she
Yeah.
handed out like two 50K medals to like 28K runners, I'm pretty sure. And but we ended up figuring that out though, and getting them the right medals. That was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then there was this one guy who he I don't know his name, but he had one loop left, and it was really close to cut off. And but he ended up making it, and so that was really cool to see him finish because it was the longest he's ever ran before, and he like barely made cut off. It was like 10 hours or something. I don't
Remember
remember.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome to have him finish though. And
I think
so
they're the last people that were there, and his
yeah,
wife was there with a tent, and
yeah,
he came in with like a couple minutes to spare. Like it
yeah.
was close.
Yeah, it was cool to see that accomplishment because I mean 7 4.1 mile loops is kind of like especially after like hundreds of people have ran, like these mud ruts are in it and stuff, and so it was cool to see that. And so
Yeah, for
but
a little perspective, it was like the trail was completely covered with like 3 inches of water at some points.
yeah,
And that just over, hours of runners running through it, it just became a complete mud fest. It was so bad.
yeah,
Like I
yeah,
remember going and picking up course markings, and we would have to go on like the, the wood line to actually get around these huge puddles. So, and
yeah,
then like you're saying, the people were having to do that for, you know, 2 or 3 loops towards the end.
yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and it was just a lot of people pushed themselves to the like complete limits, and it was just
Oh yeah.
awesome. And the mud did not help at all, so it was just cool to see all those people. There's a picture I got of one of the guys. He's wearing the Nike Trail shirt, and I think he ended up getting third or something. But there's a picture of him on the ground, and his face is just all pain, and so that was a cool picture. But that kind of summed up the emotions for the race for a lot of people.
Hmm. For sure.
So after that, It was getting ready for the big Texas Diablo. This is one heck of a race, man. The Texas Diablo. It was a little controversial, so I called it the hardest marathon in Texas, but it hadn't actually ever been ran before, but I knew it was the hardest marathon in Texas. And so I'll do a little explaining for this, but the marathon, it was a literal marathon, 26.2 mile marathon. And a lot of people took the marathon out of context and thought I meant just a trail run in general, like it was the hardest run in general, and it's not. The Habanero 100 is definitely the hardest run in Texas, but it was the hardest 26.2 mile marathon in Texas that I knew of. Like I researched a lot of runs in Texas, and it was the hardest 26. It had over 100-degree heat, humidity, and sand, and it was on trail. And I don't know any other marathon 13.1 mile race that does that in Texas. So, and it's put on in the middle of July, July 24th. It was like one of the hottest, and I purposely chose July 24th because it's one of the hottest weekends of Texas historically. And I wanted to put it on somewhere in North Texas because North Texas is one of the most humid regions other than the Houston area, just because of all the lakes that are in North Texas. And so, and I wanted it in a place that was pretty, crazy terrain. And so the LBJ National Grasslands, they have, sand and like all kinds of stuff, and it's open. There's not really a lot of tree cover. And so I knew it was going to be a hard race. And there were a lot of people that said, like, oh, this isn't the hardest race, like Habanero is. And Habanero is the hardest race in Texas. But again, this is a 26.2 mile marathon. Is the hardest marathon in Texas. So it was a little controversial, but a lot of people signed up. I think we had 60 or 70 people. And man, preparing for this race, I think Asher came the day before. Yeah, you came on the Friday of the race. But
Because you had already
preparing
course
for
marked
this,
at that point.
yeah, I had
Yeah.
everything pretty much set up. Man, I started all by myself. I started course marking, setting up tents, doing all that on Tuesday. I started course marking Tuesday, and I course marked 6 miles out in the heat. I did it at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the midday heat. So I definitely got a bunch of pain, and it was it was pretty crazy. But Tuesday I went out there course marked. Wednesday I went out there course marked. Thursday, Friday, for 4 days I was course marking because I wanted to make sure people, one, didn't get lost, and two, just doing. I just didn't have enough storage to carry that 13 miles worth of course markings on me. So I was just making sure it was marked very well. And so, but yeah, I had everything marked, and then I had all the aid stations put out, and the water situation was a little difficult. So there was water there, but it was non-potable water. But I heard there were some guys that said that that's the same water they use in their house. But I didn't want to put people in jeopardy and give them bad water, and then us get in trouble or a bunch of people get sick. So what I ended up having to do is I went to a Walmart like 30 minutes away, and I was in this little truck, and the little white truck that we got that we pulled the
Yep.
trailer in, and I
Yeah.
went up to the Walmart and I bought a ton of 5-gallon water jugs, like a ton of them. And originally, so I filled them up with the non-potable water, and then I tried to get these tabs that kind of,
Iodine tablets.
yeah, it was like these
Yeah.
tablets that clean the water.
Yep.
And I tried to do that for just one, but I was working on it for like an hour, and it's a big process to like do it. And so I was like, this isn't worth it. And so I poured them all out, cleaned them all out, and then Asher came Friday, and when he had came Friday, we went out to this water mill in Gainesville. That's where I live. And we filled up a bunch of these just 5-gallon jugs, and we loaded the back of our truck up with like tons of water.
So
It was
much
like
water.
200 gallons of water or something. It was insane. Tons of ice. We went to this ice machine, and I had gotten 3 massive coolers of ice. And so we filled these. No, it was like 4. No, it was like 6. We filled up like 6 coolers full of ice. I don't know how many pounds it was. It was plenty though. But
Yep.
we had a ton of ice and a ton of water. And so race morning, I was confident in the course markings. I was just hoping that everybody would be able to complete it as safe as possible, and that we did everything on our end to help them finish. And so race morning, we woke up again 4 a.m., something like that, something really early. It was like 4 a.m. I think the start time for this was 10 a.m. 10 a.m. in July 20. Yeah, in middle of July, middle of the day, started at 10 a.m. And so we had some time to set up, but we went out there and put out all the water and the ice for the aid stations. And then we got all the stuff for food for all the aid stations. We had two aid stations with food, the others were just water and ice. And everybody started showing up about hour, 2 hours from the race. And um, I was excited. I didn't know what to expect. The medals were cool. The medals were so cool, man. the
Yeah.
the the Texas Diablo medal for the marathon was like it's just this huge medal. Like it's a massive. It was like the size of my hand. My hand's pretty big, so it was a huge medal. And then the half marathon was actually half the size of the marathon medal because it's only half of the marathon. It's only half of the race they run, so they get half the size. So I thought that was pretty funny. And I actually ordered way too much because we had so many people DNF that I ended up having so many leftover medals. But the race starts, and Asher and them are at the aid station. I think I had you
No,
were
I
aid
stayed
station
back.
rover.
I stayed back with you at the
Yeah,
start. Kinsey and Cole, they went out to that main aid station at mile 5, maybe.
yeah,
It was one of the ones that was manned because it like had food and everything.
yeah. You were at the
Yeah, I stayed back
you,
at the
yeah, you
I
were
stayed
at
back at the
that aid
start with you.
station. Yeah. So we started the marathon off first at 10 a.m. Then we started the half marathon at 11 a.m. So already right off the bat. So we had radios, and I made sure to get radios because there's not like hardly any service out there. But the radios, and I got these radios that had like super high frequency to where they could reach really far distances. But when we got out there, the hills and just how everything is, the radios just did not work at all. So it was so
Not
hard
at
to
all.
communicate.
Yeah.
So whenever I realized that, this is before the race started, I told Asher, I was like, okay, you're aid station rover, and so you need to come through here every hour and just check on all the water and all the aid stations, and then report back to me if anything's going on. And so I had Asher driving around the whole time. And so we start the marathon off, and Asher's with me. And then Asher goes out to the Midway aid station after that. And I think um, I forgot exactly. You called me. So,
I called you because there were runners, and this was like within 30 minutes of the start. There were
yeah,
runners on the road, completely off course, where they, weren't supposed to be,
yeah,
asking me. And I was driving the truck. They were asking me. They were like, "Hey, we think we made a wrong turn back there." And I was like, "Yeah, I think you did." And they were, trying to tell me about how they thought the course markings were all off, or like somebody had
yeah,
like turned them
yeah,
around, or somebody had come mess with them. And so I was like, "What in the world is going on?" So I got on
yeah,
the phone with you like immediately.
yeah. Asher called me, and he's like, "Yeah, these two guys. It was first and second place.
Yeah,
They had they were on a road. This race was all trail. They went on a road on one of the roads, and they had gone on the roads because they thought that the course markings were wrong. And so Asher calls me and he tells me, and Asher, he didn't course mark, so he knew the course, but he didn't know it like I knew it. So he
yeah,
wasn't completely sure where they were off at. And so Asher called me, and I was like, "Oh no, I thought I might have miss like marked something or something." And so he called me, and I was like, "Okay, hurry up and get back here." And this was 10, 15 minutes before the half marathon was starting.
yeah,
And I was kind of freaking out. And so but you got to stay calm in these situations. So I was like, Ashley, come back in your truck because Ashley didn't know like what to do in the situation, and so he came flying in on in the truck, and I was like, okay, you're gonna be race director. You're gonna send off these people running the half marathon. I'm gonna hop in the truck and go get these guys. So I give Asher like the megaphone and all the race directing stuff, and he goes, and Asher sends off the half marathoners as I'm going to get these guys. I drive up the road, and there's these guys, two guys running on the road, and I see this girl behind them, and I was kind of scared. I was like, oh no, is everybody gonna get off course? But it was only three people, and 3 or 4 people, and so I see these guys, and they're like running out of the national park, or out of the national grasslands. They're like about to run onto the public road. I was like, what are these guys doing? And I drove up, and I picked them up, and I was like, hop in the back. So they hopped in the bed of the truck, and I told them, I was like, I'll drop you off. They told me what mile they were at. They were at like mile. 5, but the closest place I could put them on the trail is mile 4.5 or 4. So I put them. I was driving back, and I see this other girl and guy on the road, and I tell them, "Hey, y'all going the wrong way. Hop in the back of the truck." They hop in the back of the truck. I drop them off at the mile 4 aid station, and they've already ran like 5-6 miles. So they're not too happy about it. But I go and check the sign because I'm like, I don't want anybody else to get off course. And right before I check the sign, I look at the aid station, and there's like 10 people gathered around the ice and water. And so I knew everybody was going the right way. I went to the sign, and it was marked how it was supposed to be marked. And I
Yeah.
guess, and it was these big bright orange signs. So I guess they just thought it might have went some way. I don't know, but that was kind of a relief knowing that they Asher was able to start them off, and then they were able to go the right way. And um, yeah, Asher, man, you've helped so much, man. Because if you weren't there, I don't know what I would have done, man. It's just always good to have like a right hand man whenever you're doing race directing
Yeah.
and putting on a race.
Like I said, it's always an adventure. It's
Yeah,
always a good time.
yeah, you gotta have.
Yeah. So I was actually gonna say, after the first race, after we did the Texas Diablo, I asked Briston, I was like that went really smoothly. Are you like surprised? I guess I didn't ask you, but I told you. I was like, are you surprised how well it went? Like, just based on your previous experience. And you were like, no, man, like the entire time, I pretty much didn't know what I was doing. I was like, really? Like, you pulled that off really well for not knowing what you were doing. So
Yeah, and yeah, I
that
mean, at the end
gives
of the
you,
day, like I had everything planned out and everything, but there's just some things that you just don't expect. But
yeah, you just can't prepare.
I had everything that as a race director, I was as fully prepared as possible. And so, but when you're
Right.
in the situation, there's just so many things that can happen and so many scenarios that go on that you got to be like calm under pressure, and then you just got to make the most logical right decision in that moment. And it's like
Right.
split second decisions, and you got to be on your feet, you got to be fast. And so, like internally, I was kind of freaking out a little bit, just with a bunch of stuff going on, but I was keeping cool, keeping calm, just calm and collected, and just making, because you're the guy in charge, you're the one running everything. And so yeah, I mean, and at the end of the day, the reason I said that is because like nobody really knows exactly what they're doing. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what they're doing, you don't know exactly what you're doing. So but yeah, so the half marathon was going on, and then it was just off to the runners. And I was just hoping everybody can make it across that finish line and be smart with their running. And so the race was going on, and about everybody from the marathon, like the top 10 people, they were coming through. We had, I think, a little over half the field. I think it was 48% of people. They were dropping out 13 miles into the race. And they were like, no, I'm not doing another one. And people were coming way past, because cutoff time was like, I think we had it to where they could run it in 8 hours or something, or 8 or 10 hours. I don't remember exactly. And so they weren't going to make cutoff time. And they were coming in their half marathon loop in like a, a time way past the cutoff.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of people dropping out, and there was a bunch of half marathoners, and they were coming in. And the guy that won the half marathon, he came in flying like it was nothing. That guy just flew through. But a lot of people running the marathon, they were like, the heat was really getting to them. And everyone that came through that ran the half marathon, at least just the first 13 miles, everybody except for like a few, where the heat got to them. They were hurting. The heat was hard. And there were some people that came through that were doing the marathon. I was like, I don't know how they're gonna do another half marathon loop, just because of the condition they were in. It wasn't like they're in like a life threatening condition. They were just really hot and sitting
You just
down.
tell that they were burning up.
Yep,
Yeah.
and they were hurting too. And so,
Do you
but
remember how
everyone,
hot it was that day? Like what it got
yeah,
up
it
to?
was like, I think the index it feels like 107 or something.
It
It was
was
like
that hot.
107
Yeah.
degrees
It
index.
was. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was no joke.
Yeah, and every 3 miles we had water and ice for everybody. So we had everybody an opportunity every 3 miles to get water and ice. And so after like 2 or 3 hours, stuff started to go down. Um, Everyone that came through the half marathon loop that was running the marathon, a lot of them, every single one that dropped out dropped out for a good reason. And there was nobody that went back out there that shouldn't have gone back out there. They were in a good enough condition to go back out there. And so, and as a race director, you do want to look out for the safety of everybody. And so, it's not really up to us to make the calls unless you really feel like it's life threatening. But, everybody that went back out there, they were in decent condition. And so a lot of the marathoners came through, and then the half marathoners were coming through, and a lot of people like really enjoyed it and they liked the challenge, and it was a little bit of a challenge for them. But some people, it got to them. It just like it destroyed them, and it got like a couple hours in, and this guy messages me on Facebook that's running the race, and he says, "Hey, can you get like an ATV out here or something? I'm like 2 miles I'm 2 miles from the finish, and I can't, like, I'm under a tree, and I don't know if I can go anymore." So the park, there was this guy before I put on the race, like 2 days out when I was doing course marking, there was a guy that lived not too far that was like a park helper, and he said, "Hey, here's my number. If you need ATV, anything, give me a call." And so I texted him, but he was actually out of town. He was at Walmart or something, like 45 minutes out of town, so he couldn't come with his ATV. So I sent Asher and Cole out, and they went out there, and I gave them water. Asher came and got water and stuff, and they ran out there, and they helped the guy. And you want to tell us what that was like?
Yeah, so Cole and I ended up driving out, to the closest point where we could dip into the trail and, actually find the guy. So we do that and we find him, and sure enough, he's sitting under a tree and he's just burning up. I remember he was like, I can barely walk, for 5 seconds before I get like the sweats and dizzy and I want to, fall over. And his heart, was racing. So it's obviously like the first stages of heat stroke. I mean, heat exhaustion, heat stroke. So, I mean, right when he was telling Cole and I that, and Cole's actually an EMT, so
Yep.
he knew how to handle this pretty well. And, one of the things we needed to do for him was like cool him down. So Cole's like, he basically just sent me off. He was like, "Asher, you need to go get like some water and I think some salt." I ended up going and they gave him some pickle juice or
Yeah, I
something.
remember you came
So
and got a
yeah,
bunch of stuff.
I
Yeah.
sprint down the trail, the 2 miles to I don't even think it was 2 miles. I think he was like a mile away.
Oh, okay.
So I run back to the finish and I get all the stuff from the aid station. Briston's seeing me rushing, to get all the stuff.
Yeah.
And then, I take off back down the trail and we give him the salts and the water and the ice, and he eventually got up, and I think he ended up finishing with us, right? Yeah.
He ended up finishing. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was a really cool, being able to help him get him re-upped and onto the finish. That was really neat.
And just for like, we weren't neglecting safety at all. Cole, like, I was gonna have a EMT on site. Cole was a EMT. He was also the photographer, so it was awesome having him there to do both of those jobs. And so he was able to handle all the emergencies really well. And Asher and I've been a lifeguard for 4 years. And Asher, how long have you been a lifeguard?
Like 6.
6, yeah. And so we're certified, and we get retrained every 2 years. So, I mean, we've been certified, and we have a lot of knowledge when it comes to this type of stuff and CPR and all this stuff.
It helps a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it does help a
Definitely
ton.
helps.
So, we had a lot of guys that had a lot of certifications and a lot of medical experience out there, and so that was really nice to have. But yeah, that guy ended up finishing. I remember him crossing the line and getting his medal. And I remember, no, this was a marathon guy, but one of the guys crossed the line, just gave me a big hug, and he just slumped on me for like 5 seconds, and he's just like, pat me on the back. But he was one of the guys that finished the marathon. But yeah, these half marathon people were coming in. A lot of people were finishing. Everything's going well. There's that one guy with that one incident, but other than that, everything was fine. And then we're like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours in. I don't remember exactly what time. And I had to write a report about all of this. And I should have pulled the report up so I could kind of get more accurate description. But we were like a couple hours in, and then all of a sudden, car comes down the road. And it's this girl, and then her passenger, one of her friends that ran the race. They all ran the race. One of her friends that ran the half marathon. And I'm not going to disclose any names or anything, just as out of respect for these people. But one of the people, they were having a heat stroke, and So we called EMS and Cole, and we had like it was like a park trooper there or something. He was there, and we had a lot of just like staff on site. A lot of I forgot exactly what it was like a park trooper or something. I don't know what his name was, but we had him and Cole, and they were all helping her, and so I think she ended up being okay though, and so she EMS took her to the hospital, and that was pretty crazy just seeing that. And then a lot of marathoners started coming through and finishing, and the finishes were pretty. Oh, there's one guy who ran a half marathon that morning at like 6 or 7 a.m. in a different town. Then he drove to our race and ran our half marathon, so that was pretty cool. And he also ran the East Texas Ultra too, so that was a
He
cool
was the
guy.
guy. I was actually going to talk about him earlier. He was the guy who's doing a race in every
Yep.
county in Texas, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was cool. Yeah, he's doing a race in every county in Texas, so it was
Wish I
cool
knew
to.
his name, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's gonna be a little tricky when he gets out to West Texas because there's a bunch of counties out there with no races. But
Right.
um, yeah, he's a cool guy though. He came out to East Texas Ultra, and then he was there, and he ran a half marathon that morning, and came and ran our half marathon right after. So that was pretty awesome. And there were just a lot of really good finishers. There were some people that finished the marathon. The guy that came in first, I forgot what his time was, but he did really good. The guy that was in second ended up dropping out like 3 miles from the finish or something like that, 4 miles, something like that. It was just too hot, and these guys ended up running like 28 miles, 29 miles instead because they did go off course. I think it was like 28. I don't remember exactly, but a lot of people finished. It was just a lot of. It was really cool to see a lot of people come through, and there were a few that were hurting really bad when they came through. And so what we did every single time is when they came through, we would pull up a chair for them, like give them the best hospitality as possible, give them all the nutrients they need. And we had a loaded aid station. That aid station was loaded. We had like every food pretty much that you would need for an aid station. So the aid station was solid. And then everyone started finishing, and then the cutoff was 5 o'clock. I think. Yeah, it was. Was it
You're
five
right.
o'clock?
Yeah. I think,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it was 5 o'clock. Five,
It
six
was
o'clock.
5, 6, or 7, somewhere in there.
Yeah, yeah, somewhere around there. And one runner had not finished, and I don't want to give any names or disclose any names again or anything like that, but that was a whole thing within itself. But I ended up putting on my vest, and I communicated with Asher and asked if, because they were sweeping the trails at this time, and they had sweeped everything from mile 1 to 9. And I had two other buddies, Cooper and John. They did miles 1 to 4, and then Asher did miles 4 to 9. Asher, Cole, and Kinsey, y'all did that. And so I went to them and I said, "Hey, have y'all seen anybody?" They said no. And so I knew this person was on between mile 9 and 13, this 4 mile stretch. So I put on my vest and my water, and I ran out there, and I was running on the trails, and then I found them, um, but there was no service, and they were in critical condition, and so I I I was running as hard as I could to find this person, and in my head I was thinking, okay, did they get off trail? Did they hallucinate and get off trail? And are we gonna have to get SAR out here, search and rescue? And I was just hoping they were at least on the trail so we could find them. And they were in very critical condition. And I was going like, it's on my Strava. It was like 6 something minute pace trying to find this person. And I'm running through sand, and it's 5 o'clock, hottest point of the day. And I'm running through sand and stuff. And when I find them, I throw up a little bit just because of how fast I was running, the nerves, and just the condition I found them in. I threw up. And then I was trying to contact EMS immediately, but there was no service where I was at. And so, but luckily they were only like half a mile from the finish. Like it was not far at all. And so I ran back to the finish, and my friend Cooper was there. And Asher and all of them at the time, they were cleaning up course markings. And so they didn't know any of this was going on, but Cooper was back at base. And so I'm like yelling at Cooper. I said, "Hey, call 911," and because I don't have any service. And then, but when I run out to him, I get service. So I ended up getting on the phone with the dispatcher and telling them the situation. And then so they come out. Well, actually, they had not come out yet. So right here, it's kind of like you can't, you got to be calm and collected in situations like this. So I told Cooper because they're gonna need directions on where to go. So I said, as soon as I got off the phone with them, I told Cooper, I said, "Hey Cooper, go to this corner of the gate to where the trailhead was." And I said, when EMS gets here, tell them to go down this trail. This is where we're at. So I told him to go do that. And so he went over there. And then I went and grabbed my pouch. So that had my CPR mask, everything I needed. I had water on me. I had a bunch of stuff. And then so I ran back out there on the trail. And man, it seemed like I was running. When I was running out to get 911 called and running back, it was like slow motion. Like time was just so slow. And like whenever you're in a situation like that and it's like life or death for somebody, it's like it's pretty it's different, man. And so we get there and we're with them for a long time. It's like, man, every second it just seems so slow. But we were with them for like 30 minutes or something. And then finally a trooper, one of the park troopers comes out, and one of the EMS ladies comes out, and they assess the situation, and they go back and get a backboard. And so we got that person out, and then I followed up with them, and it was kind of scary because they did, like, I'm not going to go into detail because I don't want to disclose anything I shouldn't, but they did end up being okay. And so they did end up making it through the race and everything like that. And I did give before I knew the condition they were in, before I had searched, like right before the race ended, I gave one of their friends a race medal. So they got the race medal at least. And that's before the cutoff had happened and their friend was still out there. And so anyways, they did end up being okay though. And so that was just kind of relieving that they were okay. And it's crazy how far people will push themselves, and a lot of people push themselves in that race. And there was another person that they ended up going to the hospital a couple hours after the race for kidney stones, or it was something. I think it was kidney stones or something. And so they ended up going to the hospital for all that. But it was a crazy race, man. Life
It's brutal.
changing,
Yeah.
matured the heck out of me. And you know, one big thing is that um, I made sure that people knew what they were getting themselves into. And as far as our end, because like a lot of people are like probably questioning as far as liability and stuff, like we had liability insurance and everything like that. But I made sure, and I remember one of the runners commented on this whenever they were at the race, but I put like two or three waivers in the thing that says like I acknowledge that I'm gonna be running and like heat, or I forgot how I worded it,
Extreme conditions.
extreme heat, and
Yeah.
that no one is liable if I suffer, any heat related
Right. Plenty
injuries
of
or anything.
disclaimer. I
Yeah.
mean, you put it in the name too. So, I mean,
Yeah. And then
hardest
the first
marathon in
thing
Texas.
when they get on the website is heat warning or something like that. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, I made sure people knew, and it wasn't like it was something unexpected. So, a lot of people were willing to put themselves through this, and
Well, what's
it's
crazy, if I can interject, what's crazy is I mean, I had been heat training all summer, right? I mean,
yeah,
that up in Fayetteville, I'd been running at like 10 a.m. every day, where real field was like 85 to 90. And whenever I was picking up horse parkings, and I actually ended up getting kind of turned around back on those trails, I like started to feel like the heat and just how much water was getting sucked out of me.
yeah,
And I was actually a little concerned because I think I meant to do only like 5 miles back there, picking up horse markings. And this was that right before or right during the time that you had gone and found the lady on the trail. So, I mean, the heat of the day, right? And yeah, I was a little concerned for my own health and safety. I wasn't even running the race. I hadn't even done, 20 miles. I'd only done like 5. And so, yeah,
yeah.
those conditions are no joke. No
Yep.
joke at all.
And yeah, I mean, habanero, it's extremely hot as well. And actually, I got a message from somebody, but somebody said that, and this is coming from them, not me, that the Texas Diablo is harder than the habanero.
It's the humidity, man.
Not the habanero 100, not the 100 miles, but
Yeah,
just like the distance that's equivalent to a marathon in the
right.
habanero. They said that the Texas Diablo was way harder than the
Yeah.
habanero. as far as like the 30K or whatever the distance is that equals that.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that was interesting to hear. And you know, there's a lot of races. There's not a lot of races like that are in the heat. The only ones I could think of
Right.
is Habanero, put on my trail racing over Texas, and Badwater 135. Honestly, and I didn't say this, but the inspiration for the Texas Diablo race when I first created the company, it was I wanted to create the hardest race possible to where people would push themselves to their
Yeah.
absolute limits. And
Right.
so that's where the Texas Diablo came from. And originally I wanted to do like some crazy 100-mile race, but I have like yeah, that was just an idea. I like you don't really know. Like you could have these good ideas, but when you actually get out in the field, like it becomes a lot more realistic. So but yeah, ended up just doing a marathon, starting out with that. And um, but like Badwater was an inspiration, Badwater 135. And the thing about that is those people, it's like a selection to get into it. And it's like some like crazy race, man. And so I've watched Badwater every year, and it's a big inspiration race. I want to run it one day. And so this race was it was inspired by Badwater, and the layout and the way in which I did the race was inspired by Badwater. And I'm pretty sure Badwater, I think it's self support the whole time. Anyways, you have to have a crew support you the whole
Hmm.
time. I don't
Yeah.
think there's aid stations or anything. But yeah, we try to create the Badwater of Texas as far as just marathon. And man, I think if we did turn it into a 100-mile race, I don't know if it would be possible. Like
Yeah. It's
doing
so brutal.
13, like if we did 9 13-mile loops and made it a 100-mile race, I really don't think anybody would finish it. Because if we started it all day and then went into the next day and it was in the conditions it was in, I really don't think it would be possible. And
I just
so,
don't think anybody's body can deal with heat that well. Like
yeah, and
it's so brutal.
I don't think it should exist. I don't think races that hard should exist because people will sign up for them and end up hurting themselves for like 100-mile races at least. And something trail racing over Texas race director Rob Gordon told me, he told me don't make a race that's too hard. And so I made sure like it wasn't something insane. And I think that's a big thing is like you don't want to have a race that's too difficult because that's just like I don't think it's ethically right to make a race that it's like a night like it's a majority chance that someone will die, you know. And
Right.
so yeah, I just don't think that's ethically right unless someone just chooses to go and do it on their own. But I don't know, who knows. I think if there was a selection process and people were like you had to like run Badwater to get into it or something, I think that'd be a little bit different, you know. But who knows, we'll see. But I don't
Yep.
want to make a race that's too hard. I just don't feel like that's ethically right to create a race that's like almost impossible. I don't know. You got the Barkley, but the Barkley's not heat either. It's just pure mental and muscle fatigue.
Yep.
So, and then we got into the whole debate on which is harder, running in the heat or running elevation gain, like running up mountains and hills. And I think we ended up with heat because the heat's so taxing on the body and just the condition and the brain and the heart.
Because
And
if you're
where,
not constantly like getting more electrolytes, getting more fluids, you're not
yeah,
going to make it. I know
eh,
it's kind of the same for elevation, but
yeah. I mean,
something about the heat.
running up a mountain is really just pure muscle. Um, like it's just destroying your leg muscles, really. Whereas when you're running in the heat, it's your whole body that's being affected,
Yeah.
not just you like particular parts of your body. But I don't know. That's a good. I mean, I'm gonna and it's gonna be biased, but I think heat's harder. Like heat is harder than running up elevation and doing all that. So, anyways, that was the Texas Diablo race, and that was crazy, man. We only got
Hmm.
2 races left, and that both of them were just like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. They were
Yeah.
pretty fun. So, but Texas Diablo was a huge learning curve, huge crazy story, and actually, I don't know where I will or I want to put it on again next year. I might have to wait till the year after, but I don't know if we're gonna be able to get it permitted again just because of all the incidents that happened. And but we're gonna see. And if we can't, then we're gonna try to get it at a new location somewhere in North Texas. And if I can't get it this year, then we're gonna actually push it to 2023. But we're gonna do it again, and we're gonna put the race on again. So Um, it just might not be at the same. I hope it can be, but it might not be. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was Texas Diablo, and that ended off the summer. And that was all the summer races, just those three. And all of them were huge learning curves. A ton of work went to the behind the scenes of each one of them. I was working like months, hours and hours every single day on these races and preparing for them and everything. And it was a lot, but it pays off for the accomplishments people make, and just the personal accomplishments people are able to get from these races. It's just super rewarding
Mhm.
to see and be able to provide somebody that experience, to be able to go out, see something that's either scenic or something that's life changing, and how far they're able to push themselves or what they're able to experience. And that's
Right.
something I'm really keen on, is like the experience for the runner. And so our races, they're either going to be extremely difficult, push you to your limits, or they're going to be extremely scenic and beautiful. I'm not just going to put on a race just to put on a race and somewhere that's ugly or somewhere that's not going to push you to your limits. I don't want to make a standard race that's just regular. So anyways, next up, the backland, last man standing. So this is the only last man standing race that doesn't follow the last man standing format. The last man standing format's 4.1 something miles, and it's put on by the same guy that does the Barkley. It's called the Big Dogs Backyard Ultra or something like that. Anyways, I wanted my own race because everything's bigger in Texas. So I made the distance bigger, and I want it to be its own unique race. So I called it the Backland, which is, I thought it was a cool name, made a cool logo for it. And we put that on. Man, before that, I was out doing trail work out there for like 3 weekends, like 2-3 days straight. I'd be out there cutting trail. And so I hand made like 40-30% of the trail for the backland. So that
Mhm.
was a lot of work. It was cool making my own hiking trail though. So that was pretty neat. But anyways, the backland was pretty neat. Asher had come out. I think you come out Friday again. Yeah, you came
Yeah.
out Friday again for that race. You came, and so the backland, I had gotten done with my finals on Wednesday. Yeah, I still had to heat press the shirts for the event. The event was Saturday, and for events, I try to make it to where I get ready for the event by Thursday at least. And so I heat pressed the shirts. Actually, no, I had the shirts actually. Um, I dropped off at my house. I actually didn't have to heat press them, so that was nice. But I drove home Wednesday night right after I finished my last final. I immediately went and drove home, and then when I had gotten home, it was immediate preparation for the race. Thursday was organizing and stuff for the trailer, and so it only gave me like a day and a half to like go out, course mark, and then actually set up the race. And so, yep, went out and course marked, set up tents. And when I had gotten back to my aid station, or my little race directing tent I had, it was actually blown over like on, I think it was Friday. Yeah, it was Friday. And I had went back after course marking, and it was blown over. And so I have a lot of instances to where I show up at an aid station and it's blown over or something. But, and then I end up staking them down and kind of adjusting them to the wind. But Astrid came Friday evening, and this was at Lake Texoma, Texas, on the Texas Oklahoma border, and Asher had came out Friday, and
Also after my last final.
yeah, he had came right after his final, and then so I was excited to put on the street. I think we had 20 people signed up, something, so it was a good amount of people. And I didn't know if we were gonna be out there for 2 days, 3 days, so I brought sleeping bags and all kinds of stuff, and we had a pretty loaded aid station. And so we put on the race Saturday. I think it started at 9. Yep, started at 9 a.m. This was like a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago or something. And but actually the day before the race, I was like, Astro, I was like, I might run the race. You want to race direct while I run the race? And he was like, yeah, I could do that for you. But I ended up race directing the first 2 laps of the race and then hopping in after. But we'll get into that. But we started the race at 9 a.m. and I think pretty much everybody showed up. And it looked like a bunch of tough cats out there. And Asher's dad is an ultra trail runner, and Asher's dad had actually came out, and so he had come out, and that was cool to see him running. But how this race worked is you ran 4.5 miles, and then and you have to run it in an hour. And at the start of every hour is we start the loop. So you run 4.5 miles, and then at 10 a.m. we start the other loop. 11 a.m., 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 p.m. We start a loop every hour. And so the first few loops go through, and everybody's doing pretty good. And I hop in the third loop, and I'm like, all right, Asher, you're a race director now. And so I hopped in the third loop, and I ran 5 loops. I think I ran 20 something miles, and it was like dry air, but it was cool talking with a lot of the people, a lot of the participants. And how it worked is the winner would get a big trophy and a 6 pack of beer. And we got 903 Brewers, which is a local brewing company in Sherman Denison area in North Texas. We got them to sponsor the event, so we got free beer, and they gave us a ton of beer, dude. They gave us like
So much beer. I still have some left over.
100 something beers. It was pretty insane. And I have my TABC license, by the way, so I was able to like, you know, mess with the beer and give it to people. And everyone that was in the race was over 21, so it ended up being okay. But the race started and it was going good. There were people, a lot of people pushed themselves, and a lot of people were dropping out after the marathon 50K point. That's when a lot of people started dropping, and whenever they finished, they would get a cool Backland T-shirt, and so we'd give them that. And it was just its own unique race. And how it worked is you ran down the road a mile, ran down a mile, so you ran 2 miles worth of road, and then you go through these ATV trails for like a mile, and then the last mile you go through my hand cut trail, which is like these hog track trails. That's like super Barkley style, and so they got a little bit of all the terrain, which I think they appreciated that. So yeah, I hopped in and I kept on going. I went for 5 hours, I think. And then the air started getting dry. I was coughing and I was like, I don't know how much longer I'm going to have to stay up. And I got a race direct still. So I stopped and I got my miles in for the week. So I like ran like 22 or something. And then people started dropping out and everything. And right before dark, this is the crazy part. Right before dark, one of the guys, I'm at the aid station. Asher and Kinsey are down at the tent, and one of the racers walk up to me, and he's like, and I'm at the aid station eating food, because I had just gotten done running, and he was like, yeah, there was a guy out there with a crossbow and a guy with the AR-15, and like they like ran over my course signs or your course signs and stuff like that, and he's telling me all this, and all of a sudden I hear this guy yelling coming through the finish, saying, "There's guys out there with guns," and he's like cussing at Asher and Kinsey and stuff. And so this race was on public land, and we had course markings and signs that people knew that there was a race going on. And the person over the resort, it was at Walnut Creek Resort, he had put out a post on Facebook that the race was happening, and so everybody knew there's a race going on. And what happened was there were hunters that came through. It was 2 guys with AR-15s and the guy in camouflage with a bow, and they came and they ran over my course signs, getting back into this trail, and they had went back there blocking the trail. Like you couldn't squeeze through it. Like you have to like pick up limbs to get through how they parked, and they blocked the trail, and then they went back there hunting, and they were sitting in trees with camouflage as the guys were running through, and it freaked one of them out. The other guys just were like, didn't really care. They were like, whatever. Because I mean, trail running, if you do trail running, especially in Arkansas, you know that there's hunters out there. But so I think the hunters ended up picking up that they weren't going to get anything with runners coming through, so they ended up going back in the woods somewhere. But one of the guys like was not having it, and he ended up dropping right after that. But he ended up being cool after I talked to him like 30 minutes, hour later, and he cooled off. And so everybody else was still going though. And so I had went out there with this guy named Rusty. He's the guy that was over the resort. I went out there with Rusty, and we went out there and we cut the limbs off there were limbs touching the sides of the truck. So we cut the limbs off so that runners could come through. And so, but they ended up leaving after dark anyways. And it started getting really cold. It was so cold, dude. I forgot about how cold it was. It was so cold and windy. But that night it was super cold, but we got a fire started. We had 3 guys left, and I think the fire just like really made a lot of those last few guys just drop, because it was just so warm, and those guys were at like 48 miles or something, 45 miles. So it came down to the last 2 guys. One guy looked really good. Like he said he was willing to go 100 miles. The other guy ran the farthest he's ever ran before. So, but the guy ended up winning. with 49.5 miles, 11 loops, 11 hours. And so he ended up winning the Backland, the first ever inaugural Backland. I'm going to put that thing on every day till the day I die. So, but he finished, and I went back, and then we cleaned up the next morning. That was it. The next weekend, put on the Cook County Patriot 5K. It's just a local 5K I put on here in Gainesville. It's my hometown. And so it just means a lot to me. And it's a very patriotic town. I'm a patriotic person. So it's called the Cook County Patriot 5K. It's a fun little 5K. Nothing really crazy happened there. The wind was just, pretty crazy. Put that one on. Asher didn't make that one, but put that one on like the weekend before last. And that was it. So that was all of 20.
How'd that go? Were there any difficulties? Were there any
putting up the arch?
anything?
Yeah, we had an inflatable arch. This is the only race I put up a big inflatable arch for.
Yeah.
And I put up the arch, and then the wind was blowing so bad that it was like blowing over and stuff. And we had it weighted down with these like 5-gallon water jugs, and I had like 8 of them, but it just didn't work. And so we had to deflate it, and then we had to figure out a new starting line system. But we got it figured out though. One of my volunteers didn't show up, and so I ended up sending Carly out, which is my girlfriend. She was there helping. She was supposed to run the race, but I ended up sitting her out there, and she was in a traffic vest and a stop sign telling the cars to stop. So I gave her a 5K medal for that though. So, but that was pretty much all of 2021, all the races. And next year we're putting on like 8 races, and a lot of them are during the summer, going to San Antonio. And a lot of these races we're adding distances. So it's now the Chupacabra 50. So it's a 50 miler now. And then I got 2 races near San Antonio area. And so I'm excited for what's to come. And so far, I mean, it's just been awesome. All the support from trail runners in the area. And yeah, it was a crazy year. Definitely a lot of learning for sure.
Yeah.
So you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the same page. Just it's obviously super exciting every single race that we get to put on, and all the new things we get to experience. I think one of my favorite things by far has been just the race environment. I mean, even as race directors, we get out there and it feels like race day. I mean, because you and I know what race day feels like for ourselves. So, whenever we're out there, even though we're not on the starting line, we can tell, people are amped, people are ready to go, people are ready to race. And I think that's what makes it so special.
Yep. And just putting on the race itself is so physically exhausting. It's like a race within itself, but it's so worth it though. And
it's so worth it.
Yeah, and it's so fun. It's so fun putting on races. And I've noticed though, each time I put on a race, when I wake up that morning, it becomes less nerves and just more confidence, just because each race you put on, you get more confidence. And so you kind of know what to do in certain situations. And so, the 5K, I wasn't too nervous for it. I was just really confident in it. And it was the second year I was putting that one on. And so it was the first one I ever put on in 2020. So yeah, it was fun though. And I'm excited for 2022. It's going to be crazy year. We got a ton of races. We got races the month of May. We have a race every weekend. So that should be interesting. We have 2. We have the Chupacabra East Texas Ultra. Then Asher's going to be actually race directing his own race in Little Rock, Arkansas at Burns Park. And so it's a trail race. And he's going to be putting that on under Texas Outlaw. And that's going to be his race. So he's going to race direct. He's going to be, operate that fully. And then we have a race like every 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks during the summer. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And then, just improved. It's just like every race you learn something new. And so like I'm able to improve from every race, And by the way, for the Backland next year, we're doing prize money. So we got like I might raise it to 500, but we got a $300 reward for whoever's the last man standing next year. So
for any of the listeners out there that are even slightly interested in the Backland, I would definitely recommend, just like, it's such an environment to be in. And then that style race is something you have to experience.
Yeah.
Like you just have to.
Yeah, it's different. It's fun. It's like a game. And then I was because I came off of like an injury and cross country training, and I was running like 40 miles a week, whatever. And so running 22 miles, I was like, man, like this is just running and then stopping, running and stopping. I was like, It's just like muscle, it exhausts your leg muscles, and it really it gave me 50K flashbacks from when we ran that 50K. So,
Yeah, right.
but yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I think if you're listening and there's any race that you should run, it needs to be the Chupacabra for sure. Chupacabra was the coolest race.
Cover.
Yep. Would you agree with that? Like the
I say
most
so.
scenic?
Chupacabra for the scenery.
Yep.
Texas Diablo if you want to really challenge yourself,
And
or
Backland.
the Backland. Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the two.
And then East Texas Ultra is just fun. It's like a party.
Yeah,
Every 4 miles you see people, and it's
big race, lots of people. Yeah,
yep. Yeah, it's fun. It's under a bunch of pine trees. It's really really amazing trail. It's so well kept. So it's a lot of fun. And then if you're up in the local Gainesville area, Cook County, Denton area, Dallas, Texas area, we got the 5K if you want to come run a fun. It's the only road race we do every year. It's the only road one we do. I do want to do more in the future, but yeah. So I think that's pretty much everything. You got any last words, Asher?
I was going to say, in this next year, we'll be able to talk about the 3 more that we're adding,
Yeah.
and how, what kind of person you are, and if you need to come run this or this or this.
Yeah.
That'll be cool to see.
And I want to make an effort to try and record every race and post it, so I could have like a vlog of every race. But I do want to document every race in like personal journal or video, so that way, because it's awesome. So that's everything though. If you really enjoyed the show, guys, go ahead and leave us a 5-star rating. If you're on Apple Podcasts, scroll down, leave us a rating on there. And if you leave us a rating, I'll mention you in the next show. We do the show every month. I've been doing it monthly. And also, if you're interested in the races, go to texasoutlawnrunning.com/races, and the whole race calendar's on there. Got all the races going on, and I'm excited to see where this goes. And I think that's pretty much everything. So, thank y'all for tuning in and listening, and I'll see you all in the next episode.